welcome. You're watching Business Today Television. I'm Sakshi, Batra, and this is going to be a very exciting edition where we're going to be talking and telling all our viewers about the 29th edition of the BT-KPMG study of Best Banks. And here, what has come out is that JP Morgan is the winner in the large foreign bank category, and this is for the fourth successive time that they have won this ranking as well. Joining in to discuss what has really gone behind all the work to get this award, and also what is the vision going forward for JP Morgan here in India, I'm now joined by a very special person. Mr. Kaustubh Kulkarni, the Senior Country Officer, India, and Vice Chairman of Asia Pacific, JP Morgan, is joining in on this brilliant edition. Warm welcome to you, Kaustubh. Congratulations to you and to the bank, JP Morgan, for this ranking right here. I'm sure you must be very excited. But, fourth successive time, it's the consecutive time that you won this one. Tell us, what are you doing right here in India that's consistently putting you right at the top on this one?
Thank you, Sakshi, for having us on and for me to talk about our experience and journey in JP Morgan. And also, I think it's always great to win an award, and in particular, such a prestigious award that you have with BT-KPMG, and for the fourth time in a row. It probably only means that we are doing something right, we are working with the right clients, and we have been able to scale up our business in a very, very nice manner.
Right. Now, Kaustubh, JP Morgan is completing 80 years in India. It's been a long journey. Tell us a little bit about how the journey has been thus far, and what are the plans that we can expect from you going forward now?
Yeah, so I think indeed in 2025, we will be celebrating 80 years of our presence in India, which I think is very, very interesting from our perspective in terms of how far we have come. But yes, the other way to look at it is that we are an 80-year-old company. But if you look at the full franchise on wholesale banking that we are present in particular corporate banking business, we have started that business effectively only about 14 years ago. So we would like to think that we have an 80-year presence, but we are only getting started in India with, I think, the full breadth of our franchise on wholesale banking, given our corporate banking journey has only been 14 years. And we have a long way to go.
Okay. So tell us, what are your focus areas going to be going forward from here? You've earlier articulated that there's a lot of opportunities for foreign banks in the emerging company space in India. Tell us, what are the sectors that you're going to be focusing on in the emerging space?
Yeah. So I think if you look at how fast I think our business is changing, it is more a reflection of how fast India and Indian clients are changing. And in particular, if you look at the last 5-year cycle, what we have seen is infrastructure, energy transition, mid-cap companies have effectively become very, very active. In addition to, of course, what you have on the technology side, innovation economy, direct-to-consumer business. So I think for JP Morgan, in particular in the last 5 years, we have made enormous effort to engage with all of these new and upcoming companies in each of these sectors. And that is effectively contributing to a meaningful growth for our business. But it is aligning ourselves with a lot of areas of growth, of investment, of capex, of spending, and then working and banking with leaders and industry leaders in each of those subsectors.
Right. So especially when you talk about this exciting space, renewables, semiconductors, EVs, the sunrise sectors that everybody is really talking about. Tell us how JP is really participating in these sectors now.
I think for us, Sakshi, the key one is because by design, these sectors are inherently global in nature, whether it comes to, I guess, technology, whether it comes to some interesting business models that India is pioneering, but which have also been done in Western parts of the world. And where clearly think some of our larger clients are looking to invest in these sectors in the country as well. That is what is giving us a lot of visibility, because we have been tracking closely through our global industry teams, number of these sectors carefully. We are banking with number of these companies in their respective operations, and effectively we are now extending or partnering with them as they look to each of these new businesses in India. And this works both in terms of companies as well as investors, because a lot of capital which is actually being deployed and invested in a number of these areas is actually coming in from financial sponsors, infrastructure funds, private equity, which is again a big area of focus from our perspective.
Right. Now, Kaustubh, the other exciting space is the entire startup space as well. Of course, what is it that you believe is as an opportunity that presents itself for you here? The space is scaling up. We have newer entrants coming in. The government is encouraging in this space. And we have this new wave of entrepreneurship that has gripped the country as well. Your sense of what are the opportunities that you would be looking at?
Sakshi, we actually get most excited in working with startups and, in fact, scaled up startups, as we call them. And
Yes.
typically, companies which JP Morgan engages with are a bit more matured in terms of their own journey, probably 4 or 5 years old at least, if not longer. And
Sure.
also, I think they've crossed at least about $500 billion in value. I think that's the segment where we start engaging with them. I think we have two very large teams who cover about 175 companies in innovation economy, as we call it. And then
Hmm.
again, we look at early stage, mid stage of companies' requirements. Number of the startup companies in India have meaningful international presence that they have also established. So we are working with them on their global banking requirements, payments, liquidity flows, etc. as well. But most importantly, I think it is the ability to connect the VCP community in terms of capital, because invariably all startups need capital. A number of startups need advice in terms of how to go about raising that capital, both from the private side and public market. And that's where I think we are positioning our business to, which is to engage with them across the spectrum of the business, between banking, payments, international payment solutions that they require, capital structure stack, type of investors they would like to engage with, and then public and private. So these are dimensions for our engagement with the startup economy.
That's exciting to know. Also, the deal activity, which is continuously surging, be it inbound or outbound M&A space. Tell us how is the growth looking like in this space, and in terms of business opportunities, what does it present to you?
I think one is clearly startup capital raising in India was at its
Right.
absolute peak in 2021, early 2022. Then it kind of slowed down. But now you're seeing resumption of that activity. So that's
Yeah.
clearly driving and impacting these. The second key narrative is, if you look at number of existing MNC clients of ours who have invested in India for many, many years and decades in other cases, are also looking to, I guess, crystallize the value of their India business so that the India business can effectively stand out separately on its own in terms of the value demonstration that we can achieve, which in turn will allow them to grow their Indian business even more faster or an aggressive manner, effectively by accessing public capital markets. So if you ask me, the key theme effective that we have seen in 2024 is the re-emergence of existing established MNC companies on the capital market side, who are looking at India as one of the most promising capital raising locations in order to further their domestic and international ambitions for growth capital.
Okay. When we talk about the startup space as well, one of the key aspects of startups in India is when they start off their D Street journey, launching of their IPOs. You yourself have been the book running lead managers for two of the biggest IPOs that have just recently hit on D Street, Swiggy and Hyundai. Tell us, how is the deal activity shaping up in the IPO space, particularly? What can we expect in 2025? Any kind of deals, sectors that you're working on?
I would say actually, in terms of the deal activity on the IPO space, yes, we were, I think, really proud and honored to work with both Swiggy and Hyundai on their debut IPO. We do think that in 2025, at least for JP Morgan, the number of IPOs we are actively working on is twice the number that we worked on in 2024, where we are mandated on. So clearly, I think that is the pipeline I think that we will be bringing to the market. But for us, the main focus is quality of the business that we want to bring to the market is the key one. The numbers will always have, because it will always be a very prominent player in terms of working and advising companies on their capital raising plans through IPOs or follow-ons. But I think we take enormous effort in aligning ourselves and working with quality of companies that we work with. And I think despite some of the filters that we have, there is, as I said, 2x the number of opportunities that we expect to bring to the market than what we have done in 2024.
Okay, that sounds interesting as well. Now, Kaustubh, could you give us an update? There's also this other aspect of the markets that and investors that everybody is really excited about when it comes to the India becoming a part of JP Morgan's government bond India index and emerging markets index as well. Could you give us an update on what could be the impact of this? What is it that we as average investors understand?
I guess a large portion of that impact actually has been played at least on the JP Morgan index side because as we track the flows, India I think was included in the index effective June of 2024. But I think the announcement was made late last year. And of the 20 odd billion flows, probably more than half have already come in, and the rest will track. And investors have about 12 months to do that. On back of that, or maybe because of that, couple of other large indices have also included India in the emerging bond index. But I think what it means is, think about it. Uh, in a scenario where liquidity and flows from foreign investors in local markets is important. In this case, in case of G6 is important. Having India as a part of those indices gives a very natural way for investors to start investing. And that's, I think, what we have seen on the debt side, where the debt investors globally have actually invested meaningfully more in India. And we expect that to continue in the coming year as well. So it just gives a new pool of capital as a responsible capital investing in G6, which clearly I think would have an impact on the yields, which I think is going to benefit the entire market because of the demand supply dynamics. And that's, I think, what has happened probably, which is the yield curve for the 10-year G6 or relevant G6 has effectively improved, reducing the yield, I think, that investors are comfortable accepting because of this new pool of capital investing in this.
Sure. Just one, insight on the overall Indian economy at this point in time. We've just recently seen pressures coming in on GDP growth as well. What is the outlook that you have on the Indian economy? Are you concerned about the growth prospects here, or do you think this is going to get better?
I think it's a complex external environment as well that we have to carefully track because as we look at certainly getting into the next 12, 18 months, few things which are at play. One is the geopolitics and related impact from trade barriers that are likely to increase. The second one is likely response from effectively the number of countries who are going to be impacted by the trade barriers that are going to be imposed. And I think the impact, therefore, from currency and other flows because of the same. So that's one big theme that is going to drive in 2025. But I think the net impact of that clearly in the Indian context is how the currency and the rupee responds to external movements where some of the other countries or currencies may move in a particular direction. So that's a big theme to watch. But on the other hand, on the positives, if you look at some of the larger contributor to our imports, which is crude oil, and if you look at the crude oil price forecast that at least the JP Morgan commodity analysts have given and number of other analysts have given, they have continued to guide towards a softening in crude oil prices, which is actually remarkable for a net importer like India, because the lesser the import bill on crude oil, the larger space that we have in terms of our trade deficit and the larger space that we have in terms of investments as well. So I think that is the second important thing that we'll be watching. And the third one, of course, is inflation and jobs in the Indian context. Because clearly, I think getting inflation to a lower level, as the government has articulated, is an important one. The fiscal space, the way I think government has communicated that, is also a very prudent pathway in terms of how the government is going to manage deficit and encourage investments both. And therefore, we then need to look at job creation, both in urban and rural, because job creation is what ultimately is going to drive consumption and spending. But if you look at not only India, but number of other Asian economies that our analysts and economists have factored in, they are factoring a slight slowdown because of all of these external geopolitical events into 2025. But India will still be amongst the fastest growing large economies in the world, despite all of that.
Absolutely. Now, one of the major contributors to the economy is clearly the banking industry, of which you're a part of as well. Even though you may not be, really into the retail category and a lot of segments that you're not here, I just wanted to take a step back and get a sense on the broader industry and how the scenario is emerging from you as well. Currently, what we're given to understand is that the industry is facing a lot of challenges when we talk about deposits, the CASA ratio. There is also a concern about the micro loans, the MFI industry as well. So just wanted to understand as a broader, question as well. When we look
Yeah.
at the current challenges, how do you see the industry emerging, navigating through all of this over the next 2-3 years?
So, Sakshi, yes, you're right that some of these challenges clearly, I think, are on people's mind, particularly in the last 3 or 4 months or 6 months. But the way we look at it, because I think we are a large bank counterparty to number of domestic banks for their flows. JP Morgan has also now become a very active uh, originator and participant in the securitization business. And our counterparties for the securitization business effectively are banks and NBFCs and portfolio pools that we analyze, basis which we underwrite those securitization transactions as well. So yes, while we are not a direct retail lender, but we have a lot of visibility on what is happening on several tens of thousands of loans that number of banks and NBFCs have taken, because we are effectively underwriting those pools of transactions from our side in JP Morgan on our books. But when we look at one, where the regulator and the Indian banking system currently is placed, I think we are in a very good place, both in terms of capital, in terms of, I think, risk, and the way the bank managements in India have been very, very conscious about balancing growth with underwriting standards that they want to adhere to. And we therefore think that, and even on your observation about deposits and liabilities, yes,
Yes.
this was perhaps a more acute question or question mark when we used to talk to a number of other bank CEOs about 6 months ago. But now, if you look at it, they seem to be in a comfortable place where they think vis-a-vis the asset growth that they're going to effectively target in next year, the liabilities growth is actually quite balanced. And therefore, the challenge that they were concerned about is no longer actually likely to get played out. So we actually are in a very interesting phase where some of these issues with specific parts of the assets, I think, that have been originated are going to get played. It is only going to impact a very small portion of counterparties which are currently there. But on a more broader basis, particularly on asset liabilities, we think the picture is getting better. Asset growth, I think, again, is getting to a more manageable pace compared to what has happened in the past. And credit quality issues are not cropping up in number of the larger banks that we are tracking carefully. In fact, they are managing their credit issues very, very carefully and prudently. So we're still in a very good cycle. In summary, the way I look at it, where the Indian banks are in a very, very strong position to support the growth for their clients, whether on the wholesale side, corporate side, as well as on the retail side. That's the way I look at the banking sector in particular, going forward into next 12, 18 months.
Fair point right there, Kaustubh. Just, towards the end, wanted to understand we are at the helm of 2025. What is it that is exciting you the most about this new year? What is it that you have a vision for yourself at JP Morgan over the next 2-3 years here in India now?
I think for us, for JP Morgan, one, we always want, for individuals and our employees, we always want them to balance their personal goal, ambitions, vis-a-vis, I think, how aggressively we want to grow. And clearly, I think we have a leadership team which is very young and hungry and willing to grow and contribute even a lot more. That, of course, we have to balance that with, I think, our improvement in metrics on diversity, because that is a very important agenda for us to effectively have a much larger portion of women participation as a part of our workforce. So for our India client-facing revenue business, we want to get to closer to 50% in terms of the numbers that we want to get to. So that's a conscious area of effort for every single hiring manager in a company to work towards that direction. But most importantly, I think our focus is we see a lot of growth and opportunity around us. We see a lot of room for creativity, innovation, new solutions that the clients may be interested. But the important thing is connecting the dots, because the themes and the noise that you're going to get in 2025, 2026 is going to be a lot more. And how do you therefore stay so focused on what is important, what moves the needle, how do you prioritize your time, how do you use your very, very scarce resources, which is our people, to make sure we work with the right clients in terms of working with them to solve, I think, whatever issues they're looking to, is going to be the key. So I think fundamental problem or opportunity for us is to use all of that in the most judicious manner such that we can grow the business appropriately.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Kaustubh, for sparing your time for this wonderful interaction. It's been insightful, engaging, at the same time gives us a vision as to what do we expect from here on. I wish you all the very best for an exciting journey ahead. And once again, congratulations on being the winner in this newest study, yet again for the fourth successive time.
Thank you so much, Sakshi, and thank you to your team.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.